Hi and welcome to this episode. We're going to be looking at how to grow lavender and ways to do it and make it as affordable as possible. It's always nice to have that sort of aroma and the scent in the garden, but it's just a question of price sometimes. Now I know when we all come out of lockdown we're all going to be rushing to the nurseries, so I'm going to look at two different ways that we can make the most of our time and our investment financially as well. Okay, so first of all I wanted to show you how we plant lavender seeds and what sort of timescale we're looking at for that. Okay, so what we do, we make up a mixture, and I'll just show you this, which is 3 parts sort of peat-free compost and then 1 part perlite. Now you can get vermiculite as well, but what it does is it retains the moisture but adds irrigation as well, so you don't really want damp roots or damp seeds, because that's how we introduce rot and fungal infections. Lavender is going to be a bit picky. We've done a lot of experiments. We're going to be growing munstead today, which is your common or gardener one, you know, the sort of the more bluey lavender colour, and that's perfect for sort of alongside of paths in the garden. Obviously all lavender attracts bees and pollinators, but what's perfect about it is it dries really well, really easily, so you can use it in other things. The other thing is it's very low maintenance lavender once it's grown, but the seedlings are a little bit fussy. So we've experimented in the past with soaking overnight, and we've experimented in the past with leaving in the fridge for a couple of weeks. So if you leave it in an airtight container, you know, like just a Tupperware, or you know, like a margarine tub or something like that, if you do that for a couple of weeks, what you'll find is it kind of forces it to think of it as winter, and then as early as March you can get it into a tray like this inside a heated propagator. We think that works very well. We're now in May. It's actually VE Day today, so if we hear lots of celebrations in the background, that's people getting ready. That's why I'm trying to do this. My hair's still wet, but I'm trying to do this quickly before it gets too busy, and I haven't even put the scones in the oven. So there we are. That's my life, sorry. So what I wanted to show you was, first of all, the sort of size of the seeds that we're dealing with. By the way, because they are so small, I have already watered my vermiculite and peat-free compost mix. The reason for that will become obvious in a second. So I'm just going to show you the size of these little seeds, and you can kind of see, hopefully, whoops, that they are sort of ready to germinate. Okay, now you are going to sow these quite thinly. We don't always get a very high germination rate. You're not going to expect to get 100%, but you want to give each one of these seeds a good chance at life. Now, like I say, heated propagator, because we're in May, it might be that the seeds actually benefit from being in the polytunnel. We've recently bought polytunnel, which is my favourite thing in the world ever. So I'm sowing these approximately sort of 4 or 5 centimetres apart, but as I say, I'm just looking to give them as good a chance to sort of grow and start their own little lives. Okay, so 1 packet contains a fair few hundred of these. You're not going to get 100% germination, but at the same time you're not going to need all of that number of seeds. So what we like to do, rather than just a straight seed swap, is we like to get them started and then we swap them when they're like young seedlings. So I'll show you that in a second. Right, now this next trick, you only need a very small covering. So what I've got here is some of that mixture in my hands, and then I just kind of rub my hands together like I'm greedy, and then that will just offer it a very small covering. Now the reason that I wetted the soil first was because I don't want to displace the seeds. So if I give them a little bit of spacing, it gives them an equal chance to sort of get their roots and have their own lives separate to one another. But if I now want the top to be moist, what I'll use, and you can tell I'm very proud of my little mister, is just a tiny little mister. Okay, so I just mist over the top. So it's always handy to have a few different sizes. This is just one that I'd normally use indoors, but it is cute. Okay, so that's probably enough moisture. So you can then put it into your propagator. Don't cover it. So have the propagator with the air vents in the top, or we open up our polytunnel all day. You can allow it to slightly dry on the top, Okay, as long as you've thoroughly watered with the watering can, you've got drainage in the bottom of these. Yeah, as you can see. You could use, you know, like if you go to the supermarket and you buy mushrooms, they come in those brown containers, and then just use a little drill bit to make holes, or even just like a hammer and a nail, make lots of drainage holes in those, and they are perfect, and they're free, and it saves you having to recycle those. So that's just a nice way of doing something for free. This is now going to go into the greenhouse. Now, like I say, you can allow it to slightly dry out on top, but just keep misting. Don't be tempted to flood it. Lavender will cope much better with a little bit of dry than a flood. Okay, so now let me show you these. These are at about 4 weeks. Okay, so you can see they're very, very, very just starting to get true leaves there, but you can also see some are still coming up. So perhaps these weren't as well spaced as the other ones, but there we are. So lavender is going to take a good 2 years before you can actually take a crop from it, okay? Or before you can actually harvest it, rather. So that can be something that puts people off growing it from seed. That sort of lack of quick turnaround. So as I was saying, if we don't do a seed swap for lavender, instead we do like a seedling swap, that can really take a while. So you kind of have to plan ahead. So it's not going to be a straightforward swap, and you're not necessarily going to get people being very glad that you've done that. So this is the other alternative. Okay. Now, ta-da! Here's what I made earlier. So this isn't munstead, this is just your classic French lavender. Okay. Now I bought this. It was a bit of an investment, but it came in a plastic tub that was too small for it, so I've repotted it with a bit more space, a bit more drainage, and that perlite vermiculite kind of mixed with your peat-free compost. So I've done that for this one. And I'm very glad to say it's kind of thriving now, so it was a little bit on its way out. Mainly I think because I bought it too soon in the season, but realistically we're in May now and it's been flowering for a good 6 weeks and it's got lots more buds, which is a problem for what we want to do next. So this is still quite a juvenile plant, so I would say this is probably 2nd or 3rd year for this plant. What we want to do is take some cuttings from it. So, in true Blue Peter style, let me show you some cuttings I've taken. Now, the cuttings are pliable, okay, and they are fresh. These are your softwood cuttings, okay, so they're taken before it gets to the woody part. The important thing about your cuttings is you're going to take cuttings that do not have flowers on, okay, and do not look as if they're about to flower, because the cutting is going to put all of its energy into that flower and none of the energy into new growth, quite rightly, because its purpose is to produce flowers, to produce seeds. Okay, so let me just bring this a bit closer to you guys. Okay, so when you're looking for ideal places to take a cutting, what you want is, can you see that? Plenty of new growth, but none of that new growth looks as if it's going to turn into a flower, okay? So this one, for example, would be a bad choice, because you can see that it's about to bud there, okay? So that one can live. Now, you're going to need a sharp pair of secateurs. Nothing wrong with using a sharp pair of scissors either. Okay, then what you're going to need is a pot. Now, this one has got, whoops, you see, plenty of drainage, but I've added some pebbles in the bottom without pouring them at me. Okay, so I've added the pebbles to kind of give it that little bit of extra, sort of, so it doesn't all just drop out. Okay, then I'm going to use the exact same mixture that I had up here. I'm just going to get it so it's quite firm. Okay, now I'm just going to water it. And I realise what I've forgotten straight away is a little stick. So what you're going to need, luckily we're in the garden so we've got plenty of sticks, is a tiny little stick like this. Now, it's because it's a softwood cutting, it's not going to necessarily be able to push itself straight in. Now, I'll just sit back down. There is a lot of debate about how to protect these cuttings from rotting. Some people say they use local honey because the honey has got antiseptic properties. That's sort of open for debate. We sometimes use rooting hormone. So if we do, we always use the organic type. If we use rooting hormone, you're going to do the exact same thing, but you just dunk it. You make the hole with a pokey stick and pop it in. It's difficult because, again, it's open for discussion, because I haven't necessarily noticed that I'm getting rotting lavender cuttings versus not. I might be more slightly won over by using the rooting hormone when it comes to things like mint, because that is so soft and so moist, it is kind of more open to rotting. Anyway, so what we've got here is our perlite vermiculite, and you can see it's dripping through, so it is moist. Okay, and no, I'm muddy, but it's moist. Now I'm going to strip probably to about there. Okay, so to strip the leaves off, you just hold it like that and run it like that, and then you get the gorgeous leaves in your hands. I'll put those to one side in case you want to use those again. You can see this one's slightly wonky, but this is going to be what's on the top. This is going to be what goes into the soil. So now, this is where it gets funny. So you could use a really nice, expensive knife that you've got specifically for the garden. Wait a second, how am I going to get so you can see it? Sorry. I'm working in reverse and I can't do that. So what I'm then going to do, when I've taken the leaves, it makes slight sort of openings. And this is where the moisture is going to sort of run up through, and where all the sort of, because it's almost like the sap's rising, because it's the start of summer, so it's kind of like getting ready to grow, it's all going to run up through there. Okay, so what I'm going to do with my sharp knife is I'm kind of going to take the skin off. So if I take that outer skin off, that then creates a lot more opportunity. Can you see what I've done there? For the root to grow. Okay, so it gives it more positions to come out through. Okay, so I might just do that on one side. There we are, just take off some of the scuddy bits. There we are, just do that on one side so that it's got like a little bit of space. Then I take my little pokey stick and make a tiny little hole that's about the right length. Then what I do, before I remove it fully, I introduce my new cutting and I remove it as I poke the other one down. And then that kind of stops it collapsing in on itself, because sometimes you make the hole, you take it out, especially if you're using like a dibber for larger seedlings, then it kind of collapses in on itself. So if you put that in, and then as you take it out you put the other one in at the same time, it kind of like helps it. Now what I do, especially if it's VE day, V for victory, I put my 2 fingers either side and firm it in place. Okay, so you can see it's not exactly standing proud, but it's going to be fine. Okay, so every bit that I've cut off is now in that soil. So I'm going to do the same for these other 2 cuttings. I think realistically I could fit a few more in, but because everything's flowering on the lavender, I didn't want to take too many more cuttings. Okay, so I could do that. Then timescale wise, what I'm going to do, once I've put them in, I want to kind of forget about it for a few weeks, which is really easier said than done, because you want to go and keep checking on it. But by putting a plastic bag on, you give it the opportunity to stay moist and heat regulated. So this one has been in our conservatory, but bearing in mind, the last 2 days we've had a lot of heat, but apart from that we haven't really had very much heat. Okay, so about a week ago I spritzed it again. Okay, so realistically this is moist but not wet. Now when they went in they're exactly the same, so what I want to show you now is the growth. So can you see, especially like on, wait a minute, can you see that one? Can you see on that one there's actual new growth there? Okay, so I know that these are all viable cuttings now. Okay, and what I'm going to do very tentatively, oops, where you can see it, very tentatively, I'm going to offer it a tug test. See, and I'm very gently pulling on it, and what I'm finding is that the roots are offering some resistance. So if I was to do a tug test on that one, it would just come straight out. So on the new ones they'll just come straight out, but on this one, and I'm talking very gentle, there we are, very gentle tug test, you can see they're not going to come out, and they've actually started growing. So success. So what I'm tempted to do is leave these in for a couple more weeks, maybe another 4 weeks, but with the plastic off. Keep watering them, maybe even introduce them to the greenhouse, start the polytunnel, so that they get a chance to sort of stay overnight, and it's not really going to get anywhere like below freezing. Last night apparently was 11 degrees, so I'm hoping similar. and then we'll keep checking on them. Keep sort of making sure they're moist. Now, just one last top tip: we're moistening the soil, not the plant. If you start to see anything that looks at all hokey, like rotting off or anything like that, you just have to discard it completely and kind of let go of it. But what I wanted to say was, this is a good way from maybe a lavender that costs around about £10, getting from that one lavender, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, oh, another 10 plants. So suddenly it looks like good value. So the lavender suddenly costs £1 a plant. But of course, each year I can keep doing it. Now with those seeds that we looked at earlier, realistically the second year is when I can start harvesting, and I mean towards the end of the second year. Whereas I would say with these ones, maybe at the start of the second year I can start harvesting. So it's really much for muchness, but I know that I'm going to get a true likeness of the mother plant from these ones, whereas the seeds sometimes can be a little bit hit and miss. But basically it's a really nice way of growing presents, so I'm not particularly worried that it might be that Easter next year I've got at least 10 nice plants to hand out to friends and relatives, maybe in a sort of a herby hamper, which obviously is the sort of thing we do at the Homegrown Herb Garden. So yeah, if you don't want to be friends with us, that's fine. Rubbish gifts. But also we really like using dried lavender in a lot of things, and edible lavender, so you know, sort of nice recipes and things like that. So if you are interested in herbs and you would like to know more ways to be affordable with your herbs and how you grow them yourselves, even just liking this video is a massive boost to us, but also it lets me know that I'm doing it okay, because this is quite nerve-wracking. But if you really do like it, please subscribe, because we are a new channel, so that's fantastic. But I just hope you've enjoyed it. But put some comments in and let me know how you're getting on with your garden as well, because it's a fabulous year to be doing it, really, isn't it? But thanks ever so much for watching, and best of luck with it, because you can do it and it's quite easy and you will get a lot of joy out of it. Okay,